The Silent Watchers, Echoes of a Forgotten Intelligence. Chapter 1. The Quiet Universe. I've never been one for mysticism. My name is Dr. Emily St. Clair, and I'm an astronomer at Caltech. From the moment I could read, I craved concrete answers. I pored over textbooks about the speed of light, the orbits of planets, and the mathematics behind wave-particle duality. By the time I was 10, I insisted I would one day work at NASA or a prestigious university's observatory, peering through large telescopes at the farthest corners of the cosmos, hoping for a glimpse of what lay beyond our small world. We are all shaped by the influences around us. Mine happened to be the silent, infinite expanse of space. My parents, though supportive, had neither the financial means nor the scientific background to fully grasp my obsession. But they nurtured it, taking me camping in remote sites where the night sky shone in breathtaking clarity. Under that canopy of twinkling pinpoints, I felt possibility beckoning. By middle school, I had discovered Enrico Fermi, specifically his famous question known as the Fermi Paradox. Where is everybody? If the universe is so large, with so many stars and even more planets, why haven't we heard from, seen, or encountered alien life? I was enthralled. I devoured every argument, theory, and speculation about life in the universe. The rare Earth hypothesis that complex life might be exceptionally rare. The Great Filter, which proposes a stage in evolutionary development that is so tough nearly all life fails to get beyond it. The possibility of silent watchers, advanced civilizations that choose not to communicate. The idea that extraterrestrials might be so alien that we simply fail to recognize their signals. Yet the universe remained eerily silent. My colleagues at Caltech vary in their stances. Some, like my friend and frequent co-author Dr. Marcus Lee, insist that we simply haven't looked hard enough. Others, like my longtime mentor, Professor Yolanda Creighton, argue that we may be alone, or that advanced civilizations have emerged and died out long before our star system finished forming. I'd always considered myself leaning strongly in the direction of we may be alone. After all, given the data we have, the silence is profound. But everything changed when I stumbled onto a project that would shake those convictions to their core. Early morning, the Caltech observatory offices. It was 6 in the morning, and I was the first to arrive. The smell of fresh coffee wafted through the narrow hallway connecting the main office spaces to our small break room. The overhead lights flickered to life as I made my way to my desk. My desk, like many academics, was a testament to organized chaos. Books on astrobiology, SETI radio frequency logs, half-finished data charts from last night's observational run, and a tangle of power cables that had once been neatly zip-tied. I sipped my coffee, reflecting on an unusually philosophical conversation I'd had with Marcus the night before. He insisted that the new exoplanet data from TESS, Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite, indicated we should be more optimistic about finding biosignatures. I'd retorted that optimism doesn't guarantee reality. Our conversation led us again to the Fermi Paradox, rehashing everything from the zoo hypothesis, the idea that we're being intentionally avoided or protected by advanced aliens as though we're in a cosmic nature preserve, to the notion that intelligence might be self-annihilating. I was formulating a new paper, focusing on Bayesian statistical models that attempt to quantify the probability of life. My gut told me we might have only ourselves for company. Little did I know that in a matter of months I'd be forced to revise that stance. A meeting with Professor Creighton. A few hours later, I sat down with Professor Yolanda Creighton. Tall and always dressed in subdued greys or blacks, she carried herself with a subdued elegance that belied her enthusiasm for cosmic mysteries. "Emily," she said, gesturing for me to take a seat in her cramped office, "I've got an interesting line of data for you to look at." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. She opened a secure laptop and typed in her passcode. "This is extremely preliminary," she said, turning the screen toward me. "It's from a series of radio telescopes around the globe working together in very long baseline interferometry. We picked up a unique burst in the 21-centimeter hydrogen line. My eyes widened. The 21-centimeter line is a critical frequency often used in SETI because it's a universal hydrogen emission line. If you wanted to communicate with an unknown species, it's one of the prime channels you might choose. I scanned the data. It showed a brief burst that didn't correspond to known pulsars, rotating neutron stars, or typical cosmic phenomena. My heart hammered with a mix of excitement and skepticism. This is from last night. About 72 hours ago, Yolanda said. Only the final processed data came in last night. There's something off here, though, I said, pointing to a strange periodic substructure in the signal. Could this be an artifact? Some local interference? Yolanda nodded. It might be. That's always the first possibility. We're still investigating. But you know the protocol, and I want your official analysis. You've got the best skill set for tackling potential SETI signals. I did. Over the last decade, I had spearheaded a sub-department at Caltech to handle advanced signal analysis, using everything from Fourier transforms to wavelet packet decomposition to weed out noise and identify structures that might suggest intelligence. All right, I said, feeling a tremor of excitement. I'll start right away. The paradox revisited. While analyzing the data, my mind wandered to the fundamentals of Fermi's question. If a civilization wanted to communicate, the 21-centimeter line was a prime candidate. If we had indeed received a signal, it could be the first sign of advanced extraterrestrial technology. The possibility was dizzying, yet I reminded myself that for every intriguing cosmic radio burst I'd studied, there were 100 explanations that didn't involve aliens. As the day wore on, I found myself repeatedly hitting dead ends in deciphering the structure. There was a regular pattern, but it might be the result of the telescope array's synchronization or a passing satellite with an unusual transponder. Eventually, I closed the file, took a deep breath, and exhaled. I had no illusions. The most likely answer was mundane. Still, I allowed myself a moment of reverie, imagining what it would mean if we really had contact. That night, I left the office at midnight, stepping into the cool Pasadena air. Above me, the sky was obscured by urban light pollution. It reminded me of childhood camping trips, how the Milky Way once felt so close it could swallow me. Even now, I sometimes yearned for that sense of wonder uncorrupted by cold logic. But I was a scientist. Hard data trumped fantasies. Chapter 2. Revelations in the Data. 3 days later, the analysis continued. My desk was strewn with printouts, wavelet analysis results, signal-to-noise ratios, and cross-references to known radio frequency interference. I'd also pulled up logs of local transmissions that might produce spurious signals. By that point, I was leaning heavily towards a terrestrial explanation. The substructure in the bursts wasn't exactly random, but it lacked any clear signature of modulation that you'd expect from a purposeful message. The best guess was an off-axis reflection from a geostationary satellite's transponder that momentarily aligned with the array. Marcus Lee wandered by my office. "Hey, Emily, you look like you need coffee." I yawned and rubbed my temples. "Definitely do." He smiled. "Here, I'll get you some. Mind if I take a look at the data while you're resting your eyes for a minute?" "No. Go ahead." Marcus disappeared and returned 5 minutes later, a styrofoam cup in each hand. Setting one on my desk, he perched on the edge of my cluttered table, scanning the graphs. "I see the pattern," he said softly. "Right, but it's not exactly chirps or pulses of a coded message, is it?" He shrugged. "Number. But it's not random either. And that's interesting." "And the origin?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "Unclear. We don't have the normal culprit signals that would indicate satellite interference, but that doesn't mean it's not a new or less common phenomenon." I nodded, sipping the hot coffee. "I'm drafting the report for Yolanda tonight. I'll emphasize the likelihood that this is some local effect." Marcus smirked. Always the skeptic. "Skeptic or realist?" I returned his smirk. He shrugged again. Sometimes they're the same thing. I was about to continue when the phone on my desk vibrated. A text from Yolanda. Come to my office, both of you, ASAP. A surprise discovery. We found Yolanda hunched over her laptop with an intensity I rarely saw. She barely acknowledged us except for a flick of her wrist. Marcus, Emily, close the door. Marcus pushed it shut. What's going on? Yolanda looked up, eyes alight. We have an independent confirmation. My heart rate jumped. Of the radio signal? She nodded. One of our teams in Chile picked up something remarkably similar 2 nights ago, but faint. No matching pattern in satellite logs. They say it's not an equipment glitch. Marcus exchanged a glance with me. Could it still be a cosmic phenomenon we're not familiar with? Possibly, Yolanda said, pulling up a color-coded chart. But the pattern is consistent in one crucial aspect, the periodic substructure at roughly the same intervals. I exhaled slowly. All right, so where does that leave us? With more questions than answers, she said, but we have enough data to warrant further observation. The team in Chile has promised to keep scanning the same region of sky. We'll do the same with the array in New Mexico and the network in Europe. And we're going to remain silent about this for now, right? I asked, mindful of the protocols. Yolanda nodded. Absolutely. No reason to cause a media stir. We need better confirmation, and we need to ensure we rule out local interference. Marcus leaned forward. If it's real, it's coming from somewhere near the direction of... He pointed at a notation on the chart. Cygnus, I said softly. The so-called Northern Cross, a region thick with stellar nurseries. A chord of excitement vibrated through me. Could something be out there? Of all the directions in the sky, Cygnus was home to some of the stars where exoplanets had been identified as potentially habitable. Kepler 186f, Kepler 452b. My rational mind waged war with my imagination. For the next hour, we discussed strategy, continuing observations, performing cross-correlation with other arrays, analyzing background cosmic noise. I agreed to refine my advanced signal detection algorithms further. As we left, I noticed Marcus's eyes shining with renewed hope. I tried to temper my own excitement, but it was no use. Despite my caution, I felt that heady thrill once again. Chapter 3. Phantom Signals. Mysterious Patterns. In the ensuing weeks, the signals persisted intermittently. They arrived in short bursts, separated by irregular intervals that sometimes lasted hours, sometimes days. They weren't strong enough or frequent enough to make a definitive statement, yet each new instance displayed a familiar substructure that defied easy classification. I spent long nights at the observatory, using a specialized cluster of computers to run advanced analyses, Fourier transforms, wavelet packets, time-frequency localization. I tried everything. The signals neither matched known pulsars nor typical FRBs, fast radio bursts. They also didn't show an obvious pattern like prime numbers or repeated sequences that we might interpret as a universal greeting. Marcus pestered me. Did you find anything new? Nothing definitive, I answered. The pattern is elusive. He scratched at his chin. I've been telling Yolanda we need to look at broader frequency ranges. What if we're only catching a fraction of the message? We've been scanning everything from 1 gigahertz up to 10 gigahertz. But maybe it's modulated in a way we don't understand, he pressed. Or it's a wide-band spread spectrum with only subtle peaks at 21 centimeters. I nodded, acknowledging the possibility. I'll expand the search tomorrow. Late night reflections. That night I found myself alone in the staff lounge, half-eaten sandwich in one hand, gaze drifting between the paper-laden table and the large window. Out in the darkness, the city lights twinkled. In the distance, I saw the faint silhouette of the mountains. The Fermi Paradox felt more palpable than ever. If this was contact, why so cryptic? Why so faint? If a civilization wanted to broadcast its presence, wouldn't it send a robust, unambiguous signal? There was also the matter of time. Signals travel at the speed of light. If something was transmitting from hundreds or thousands of light years away, we were effectively looking at the past. Could the senders still exist? I thought about a lecture I once attended, The Great Silence. The speaker had insisted that maybe the galaxy was teeming with life, but it was quiet out of self-preservation. Any civilization that screams its presence too loudly might get destroyed by a more advanced predator. That's a chilling thought. But as exhilarating as it was to imagine that we'd found the faint whisper of an alien mind, I kept returning to simpler explanations. Occam's razor, I reminded myself. A strange cosmic phenomenon or unknown source of interference was more likely than beings from another star. I finished the sandwich, wiped my mouth, and decided to revisit the data. I'd find out soon enough if this was revolutionary or a red herring. Confirmations and contradictions. Within a month, more telescopes around the world picked up versions of the signal, each time faint, each time slightly different in shape, but with that same stubborn substructure. It became a hot topic in hushed circles. Nobody wanted to go public yet, especially with the memory of past false alarms like the WOW signal fiasco, or the periodic excitements that turned out to be microwaves from staff lunches. One morning, Marcus nearly knocked down my office door. "Emily!" I jumped, nearly spilling coffee onto my laptop. "God, you scared me." He rushed in, eyes blazing with excitement. "We have a direction lock. The signal is consistent from a region in Cygnus, about 1,500 light-years away, in the vicinity of star cluster NGC 6871. My mind raced. That's a star-forming region with massive O and B-type stars, if I recall. "Right," Marcus said, nodding vigorously. "But it also has some older stars on the periphery that might host planets." "And you're sure it's not local?" He huffed, exasperated. "We've cross-checked everything. At this point, it's more than a glitch. But is it little green men? We don't know." I pinched the bridge of my nose, adrenaline already coursing. "We'll have to set up 24/7 monitoring. If the substructure changes significantly or grows in amplitude, that might be a clue. And we can try to see if there's any Doppler shift that aligns with the star's motion." Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. "I'm on it." As he left, I felt a small shiver. This was quickly becoming the biggest project of my career. The tension between the mundane explanation and the extraordinary possibility was all-consuming. If someone had told me then that the biggest discovery wasn't waiting for us in a faraway star cluster, but right here at home, I would have laughed in disbelief. Chapter 4. Evidence emerges. Private briefing. "Emily, I need you in my office," Yolanda's text read. I found her, Marcus, and a few senior astronomers gathered. The blinds were drawn. Yolanda gestured for me to close the door once more. I scanned their faces. Marcus looked serious, the others guarded. "What's going on?" I asked softly. Yolanda cleared her throat. "We received a private transmission from a radio observatory in Europe. They claim to have found a correlation between the signals and another dataset, one that's not typically associated with SETI." My mind whirled. Meaning what? "It's from a specialized Earth-based sensor array that monitors the ionosphere. They noticed tiny fluctuations that match the timing of the bursts. It might be a coincidence, or it might indicate some interaction with Earth's atmosphere." I frowned. But how would that be possible if the signals are from 1,500 light-years away? Are they implying some local effect? A tall, silver-haired astronomer named Dr. Burstein spoke up. "It could mean the signals are resonating with the atmosphere in a subtle way, or it could imply the source is closer than we think. The data is ambiguous." I felt a knot in my stomach. Could it be that the origin is not out in Cygnus? That it's actually Earth-based or near-Earth-based interference? "Possibly," Yolanda said, "but we can't confirm that yet. The correlation with ionospheric fluctuations is extremely weak. We only know it's statistically above random chance." Marcus rubbed his temples. So, we don't know if we've discovered an alien signal from 1,500 light-years away or a weird phenomenon in Earth's upper atmosphere. Yolanda let out a short laugh. Science can be frustrating. I took a deep breath. So, what's the plan? We're going to continue as we have been, monitoring the signal from different observatories, Yolanda said. Simultaneously, we'll examine more Earth-based data sets, including those from satellites studying space weather. The last thing we want is to proclaim contact with an alien civilization, only to realize it's auroral interference. Everyone nodded. The tension in the room was palpable. We were on the cusp of something, either a groundbreaking discovery or a humiliating fiasco. Late-night revelation. Later that night, I found myself alone, combing through the updated logs. I was about to shut down my computer when a subtle pattern caught my eye. An uptick in the strength of the bursts correlated with certain phases of the moon. Could that be relevant, or was it just a random correlation? Think, I told myself. The moon's position can affect Earth's ionosphere, and it can also reflect or bend certain frequencies. If an alien signal were arriving, the moon's location might modulate how we detect it. This was beyond my expertise in some ways, so I sent an email to a friend at JPL, an astrophysicist specialized in Earth-Moon interactions. Better to ask for help than to guess. I leaned back in my chair. My eyes drifted to the clock. 2:17 a.m. Exhaustion tugged at me, but curiosity gnawed harder. I jotted a note. Check correlation with solar flares and cosmic ray data as well. Sometimes I dreamed of how straightforward it must have been when Galileo first aimed a telescope at Jupiter's moons. A direct observation free from the complexities of intangible signals and swirling data. But we live in an era where cosmic mysteries hide behind complicated layers of noise. Near empty building, my thoughts turned again to the Fermi Paradox. If there was an advanced civilization, how had it survived long enough to send signals across space? Had it overcome all the pitfalls? Nuclear war, ecological collapse, cosmic disasters. We call that bridging stage the Great Filter, an evolutionary or societal hurdle so immense that most species never cross it. Humans, for all our flaws, were still here, surviving, at least for now. Could it be that we were about to detect a sign of another species that also passed their great filter? Or would we discover that we, in fact, might be the only ones in this region of the galaxy? I saved my work, powered down, and left. The corridors were empty, the only sound my footsteps on the polished floor. As I exited into the chilly night, I looked up, wishing I could see the stars. We might be alone, or we might not be. Either possibility still terrifies me, I admitted to myself. When I closed my eyes to sleep that night, I saw the ghostly swirl of data in my mind, half-formed patterns beckoning from the dark. Chapter 5. A quiet twist. Mundane or extraordinary? Over the next 2 weeks, the excitement around the signals waned. New data came in that suggested the signals were less frequent, and some of the patterns we'd originally noted turned out to be correlated with known cosmic phenomena, though still not fully explained. I found myself returning to my everyday tasks, cataloguing potential exoplanet atmospheres, teaching a graduate seminar on radio astronomy, and reviewing a colleague's paper on gravitational microlensing. Life was normal again, and part of me felt oddly disappointed. Marcus teased me. "Weren't you the one saying it's probably nothing?" I shrugged. I was, but that doesn't mean I'm immune to the thrill of discovery. He laughed. "Well, maybe we'll get a real signal someday." In the background, Yolanda continued to push for deeper investigations, but the sense of urgency had lessened. The leading hypothesis was that we were dealing with a natural phenomenon or an ultra-rare type of RFI, radio frequency interference. A strange invitation. One afternoon, I was checking my mailbox at the department when I spotted a handwritten envelope. No return address, just my name in neat cursive. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a short message. Dr. St. Clair, we have reason to believe your Fermi Paradox research is relevant. Join us for a private discussion on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Look for the black sedan in front of the Beckman Institute. My heart thumped. This was bizarre. It felt like something out of a spy movie. At first, I considered ignoring it. Surely it was a prank. But the reference to the Fermi Paradox and the secrecy piqued my interest. I showed it to Marcus, who shrugged. Could be some conspiracy group. Or government, I joked half-heartedly. Maybe they think we've found something. We debated for a few minutes, but in the end, curiosity won. I decided to be cautious. I'd text Marcus my location if anything strange happened. Beckman Institute, Wednesday, 6 p.m. The day was crisp, and the sun was beginning to set as I approached the front of the Beckman Institute. Sure enough, a black sedan idled by the curb. Its tinted windows hid the interior. I glanced around. Hardly anyone was present. Steeling myself, I took a step forward. The passenger window rolled down a crack, and a man's voice said, "Dr. St. Clair." "Yes," I replied. He opened the door from the inside. "Please get in." I hesitated. "Who are you?" He handed me a business card. All it said was a name, Arthur Graham, and a cryptic affiliation, Science Liaison, PSC. I'd never heard of PSC. "5 minutes of your time, Doctor." "St. Clair," he said. I slipped inside, my pulse quickening. Arthur Graham was in his mid-50s, perhaps, with a neatly trimmed beard and calm blue eyes. He extended a hand. "Thank you for coming." "Let's keep this brief," I said, half inclined to jump out if anything seemed amiss. The car eased away from the curb. Arthur produced a small envelope and handed it to me. "You should read this after I leave. It explains the gist of our interest in your research." I frowned. "You couldn't email or call?" He chuckled. "We prefer discretion. The phenomenon you and your colleagues are studying is of interest to multiple parties. Our organization wants to ensure you have all the tools and information you need to continue your work effectively." "You're being quite vague," I said, crossing my arms. "In short, Dr. St. Clair, the signals you've been analyzing aren't what they seem." My eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We suspect they're a cover for something else, an event that may already be in progress on Earth." I blinked. "That's quite the claim. Are you implying the signals are decoys?" "Something like that," he said quietly. "We've seen certain patterns before, and they typically correspond to phenomena that have nothing to do with distant stars. If I were you, I'd look closer to home." A rush of adrenaline spiked through me. "Are you saying the signals are from Earth or near Earth?" He merely smiled. "It's best if you read the materials we've provided. Also, be mindful that not everyone wants this information public." Before I could protest, the car pulled over near a quiet intersection, and Arthur motioned for me to step out. "We'll be in touch, Doctor. St. Clair." Heart pounding, I exited. The sedan drove away, leaving me holding an envelope with more questions than answers. An ominous read. I hurried back to my office and tore open the envelope. Inside was a manila folder with sparse documentation, a single typed page referencing PSC infiltration data, describing observed anomalies in local wildlife across North America. A short note listing obscure references to genetic assimilation and potential intelligence signals masked as cosmic phenomena. A warning. Discretion advised. Entities may not be extraterrestrial in the traditional sense. My mind reeled. I tried to dismiss it as the ravings of some fringe group, but the references to the signals and the local phenomena made me uneasy. The document suggested that the signals were not from thousands of light years away, but were instead originating on Earth, possibly to mislead watchers like us. The final line was chilling. "They are already here." My rational mind screamed nonsense, but my instincts buzzed. If the signals were a red herring, what was the real event? I locked the folder in my desk. I needed time to process this. The notion that an alien intelligence could already be on Earth, and in some unlikely species, as the folder implied, was absurd. We would have noticed, right? But a nagging voice reminded me, the universe can be more subtle than we ever imagined. Chapter 6. Unlikely Suspicions. Confiding in Marcus. The next morning, I called Marcus into my office, shutting the door behind him. His eyes widened at my obvious anxiety. "Emily, is everything okay?" I slid the manila folder across the desk. "Read this. Tell me what you think." He skimmed the pages, eyebrows climbing higher with each sentence. Finally, he looked up. "This is either the best science fiction I've read in a while, or something bigger," I finished. He blew out a breath. "So some clandestine group is claiming the signals are from Earth and that an alien presence is already here?" "Yes." "Emily, come on," he said softly. "We've known each other a long time. You don't really believe this, do you?" I ran a hand through my hair. I don't want to believe it. But that man in the sedan, he knew details about our signal analysis that we haven't shared publicly, and some data in the folder mentions actual phenomena in local species. If he's referencing real anomalies, we can verify that. Marcus flipped through the pages again. It mentions genetic assimilation in certain species, specifically corvids, crows, and ravens. Also references large cephalopods, octopuses. He snorted. "This is bizarre. They're claiming crows or octopuses might be harboring alien intelligence." I leaned forward. "That's the gist. And that the signals might be a distraction, so we look to the stars instead of at our own planet." He stared at me. "I mean, octopuses are famously intelligent for invertebrates, and crows are surprisingly smart birds, but that's a far cry from them being aliens." "True," I sighed. "Look, let's remain skeptical. But maybe we should do some quiet digging. The folder mentions certain marine biology labs in the Pacific Northwest and neurological labs in Japan that have found unusual markers. Let's see if we can confirm any part of it." Marcus sighed. "All right, I'll help. But promise me, we won't go off the deep end." I gave him a half smile. "Deal." The Great Confusion. Over the next few days, we divided the tasks. Marcus looked into marine biology research, focusing on any studies about octopus cognition. I scoured ornithology papers for references to unusual behaviors in corvids. To our surprise, we found small hints of anomalies. For instance, a study from a university in Oregon documented crows performing tasks that suggested problem-solving capabilities beyond typical corvid intelligence. Another lab in Japan published about certain octopus species displaying highly unusual synaptic plasticity. But were these anomalies that pointed to alien infiltration? Hardly. At best, they suggested that crows and octopuses might be smarter than we realized. But the folder's claim that they were seeded with extraterrestrial minds still felt outlandish. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. If someone went to the trouble of contacting me, an astronomer known for studying Fermi's Paradox, there had to be a reason. A quiet investigation. We decided to approach a local researcher who specialized in animal cognition, a colleague in the biology department named Dr. Samantha Ortiz. We met her for coffee, framing our inquiries as general curiosity about advanced animal intelligence. She brightened at the topic. "Oh, crows are remarkable. They can use tools, recognize human faces, and even pass down knowledge across generations. As for octopuses, they've got distributed neurons throughout their arms, kind of like mini-brains in each limb. Their capacity for learning and problem-solving is striking." Marcus probed gently. "Have there been recent studies indicating something beyond the norm?" Dr. Ortiz pursed her lips. "Well, some labs have reported strange anomalies in certain species, particularly the giant Pacific octopus. They sometimes exhibit puzzle-solving skills that border on the uncanny. But hey, we're always discovering new facets of animal intelligence. I wouldn't jump to conclusions. I forced a casual laugh. Yeah, that's what we figured. Just curious. Inside, my mind churned. Could a hyper-intelligent alien species choose to hide inside creatures like octopuses or crows, which already exhibit notable intelligence? It was a stretch, but it also offered them a convenient camouflage. No, it's too sci-fi, I told myself. Yet a part of me whispered, is it any more strange than the idea that advanced aliens would appear in flying saucers? Chapter 7. Collisions of Truth. Another signal spike. While we delved into this bizarre possibility, the cosmic signals flared again. Observatories around the world recorded a sudden intensification. For approximately 20 hours, the bursts grew stronger and more frequent. Then, just as abruptly, they vanished. It's like someone turned up the volume and then shut it off, Marcus said, bewildered. Now there's nothing. We pored over the data. The substructure was still present but amplified, giving us the best look yet at its internal patterns. This time we detected something akin to frequency hopping, a technique used in secure communications. That triggered a wave of excitement among some of our SETI colleagues. However, a new complication arose. The same day the signals peaked, numerous reports came in of bizarre animal behavior worldwide. Flocks of crows acting strangely in multiple cities, videos of octopuses crawling onto shorelines in large numbers. It was trending online. People joked about an animal apocalypse or Cthulhu's revenge. Researchers shrugged it off as unrelated phenomenon, but I recalled the folder's ominous statement. I showed Marcus a viral video from the coast of Wales, where dozens of octopuses crawled out of the surf onto the shore. Coincidence? He grimaced. I don't know. Octopuses do occasionally beach themselves, but that many. And the crows, some news segments show them gathering in unusual numbers in cities, even attacking windshields. Ornithologists say it could be a shift in migratory patterns or a response to climate anomalies. We looked at each other. The signals, the animals. It felt connected, or maybe I was letting paranoia run wild. Revisiting the folder. I dug deeper into the folder's references. One short snippet mentioned phase triggers, some kind of activation sequence embedded in the species' genetic code, potentially awaiting a signal to turn on. It sounded preposterous, but the timing with the signal spike made my heart pound. If, hypothetically, an alien intelligence had seeded the genetics of certain animals and they were waiting for a cosmic signal to trigger an awakening, this might explain the sudden bizarre behavior. But it was so outlandish, I almost laughed at myself for even entertaining it. Yet the coincidences were piling up. The mysterious Arthur Graham returns. I received another message, this time at my Caltech email. Dr. St. Clair, recent events align with our projections. The next stage may unfold quickly. We advise caution. If you need assistance, contact the number below. A. Graham. He had included a phone number. I showed it to Marcus. You going to call him? Marcus asked, arms folded. I hesitated. I need more evidence. We're scientists, not conspiracy theorists. Marcus nodded, but looked troubled. I keep remembering how you used to argue that the simplest explanation is usually correct, that we might just be alone in the universe. Now we're chasing the idea that aliens are already here, embedded in crows and octopuses. I sighed. I know how crazy it sounds, but all these leads, and that signal, something is going on. The search for hard evidence. We decided to contact the marine biology lab in Oregon that had reported the surge in octopus beachings. Under the guise of academic collaboration, we arranged a call with a researcher named Dr. Irene Okada. She sounded tired and stressed. We've had dozens of these giant Pacific octopuses literally crawling onto land. Some are dying, some we've managed to return to the water. It's unprecedented in these numbers. Marcus asked, "Have you noticed anything else unusual? Any neurological or behavioral anomalies?" Dr. Okada paused. "Yes, actually. Their neural activity is off the charts. We took an EEG-like measurement from one specimen, and the patterns are more complex than we've ever recorded in an octopus. It's almost as if something was stimulating them." I felt a chill. Stimulating them how? We don't know. Could be water temperature changes, pollutants, or something else. But I haven't seen anything like it. After the call, Marcus and I sat in silence. This was real. Something was happening in these octopuses, and it coincided with the signal spike. As for the crows, I reached out to a contact at Cornell's ornithology lab. He confirmed unusually large gatherings in multiple regions, flocking behaviors that defied traditional migratory logic. My skepticism warred with the mounting facts. Could we be misreading the Fermi Paradox? One night, gazing at the star charts, I considered the possibility that we are not alone, but the reason we haven't found anything out there is because the alien presence is already here, integrated into Earth's biosphere, like a stealth infiltration. Why crows and octopuses? Both are highly intelligent in their respective domains. Octopuses are notoriously independent, ephemeral, and physically unlike most other terrestrial life forms. Crows are social, widespread, and exhibit flexible problem-solving. Could an alien intelligence hide within these lineages, slowly adapting over millennia? I pushed the thought away. It felt too big, too insane, but I couldn't shake it. We might have been so busy scanning the skies that we ignored the clues under our noses. That night, I dreamt of black-winged shapes swirling across an inky sky, while pale cephalopods writhed on the beach, luminous in the moonlight. Something was calling them, and they responded in a wordless, ancient chorus. When I woke up, my sheets were tangled, my heart pounding. Chapter 8. Confrontations. Tipping point. The tension reached a breaking point when a sensationalist news outlet caught wind of the strange cosmic signals and linked them to the mass beachings and flock gatherings. Their story was half true at best, but it sparked a media frenzy. Within days, tabloids screamed headlines about alien octopus overlords and crows mind-controlled by ETs. Legitimate scientists rolled their eyes, but the public devoured it. Caltech administration was not pleased. They convened an emergency meeting with the astronomy and biology departments, insisting that we release a statement to clarify the confusion. Yolanda confronted me in the hallway. "Emily, is there something you haven't told me?" I swallowed. I swear, I didn't leak anything, but I admit I've been following some leads, unofficially, on a possible connection. She shook her head in frustration. "We need official confirmation or denial. Right now, the media is running wild." Marcus appeared at my side, his expression grim. "We're dealing with half-truths. If we say nothing, it looks like we're hiding something, but we don't have solid proof either." Yolanda rubbed her temples. "The dean wants a statement by tomorrow. We'll be saying that we have no evidence of any alien infiltration on Earth, that the cosmic signals are still under investigation, and that unusual animal behavior is likely due to environmental factors." I nodded, feeling sick. That was technically true. We had no conclusive evidence. And yet, the meeting with a Graham. That evening, I decided to call the number Arthur Graham had provided. To my surprise, he answered immediately. "You've probably seen the media reports," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "They're conflating everything. I need facts. If you have information, share it." He was silent for a moment. "Meet me at the Griffith Observatory tomorrow night after it closes. I'll provide something tangible." I didn't like the cloak and dagger theatrics, but I agreed. If this was a hoax, I'd find out soon enough. Griffith Observatory, after hours. Marcus insisted on coming along. We arrived under a sky tinged orange by the lights of Los Angeles. True to his word, Arthur Graham waited near the entrance. The observatory had closed an hour earlier, so the grounds were mostly empty. He nodded in greeting. Dr. Lee, nice to see you as well. Marcus frowned. How did you know my name? Arthur gave an enigmatic smile and turned. Let's walk. He led us around the side of the building, where city lights stretched below like a jeweled tapestry. He reached into his coat pocket and produced a small electronic tablet. This, he said, handing it to me. It's a series of archived documents detailing a covert project from the 1960s, codenamed Hidden Tide. It was a joint operation between government agencies and certain private research institutions. I raised an eyebrow. Hidden Tide? He nodded. It focused on unexplained genetic markers in certain marine species, octopuses primarily, that didn't match evolutionary timelines. The lead scientist hypothesized extraterrestrial origins, claiming these creatures had been genetically engineered eons ago. Of course, it was dismissed as fringe, and the project was buried. But they kept collecting data. Marcus scrolled through the tablet, eyes wide. These are official memos, lab results. Where did you get this? Arthur gave a weary shrug. PSC has connections. When they realized your group at Caltech was on the verge of uncovering the signals, they decided to tip their hand. They want the public to remain distracted, but they also want a few key scientists to know the truth, just in case. I felt my mouth go dry. In case what? He sighed, gazing out at the city. In case this awakening can't be contained. A hush fell. The only sound was distant traffic and the faint wind. Finally, Marcus said, You really believe that octopuses, crows, and who knows what else are basically hosts for alien consciousness? Arthur closed his eyes momentarily. I wouldn't phrase it that way, but yes, something is embedded in their biology. Call it an advanced neural pattern or a kind of biologically integrated AI. And it's been lying dormant, waiting for a trigger. A breeze ruffled my hair. My mind leapt to the data from Oregon, the sudden spike in the signals, the mass beachings. It was insane. But was it impossible? Arthur tapped the tablet again. Look at the final section. It references neural scans from a group of crows in Alaska. They exhibit synchronous brainwave patterns reminiscent of how supercomputer nodes might communicate. These documents are decades old. Imagine what's happening now. My stomach knotted. You're telling me that the signals we detected are effectively a wake-up call? Arthur gave a solemn nod. Yes, and they're not from 1,500 light-years away. They're local, probably bouncing off the ionosphere or satellites to mimic a deep space origin. The real question is, who is sending them? That question hung in the air like a spectre. If crows and octopuses were the receivers, then who was orchestrating this? Marcus cleared his throat, voice hoarse. So, what do you want from us? Keep investigating. Quietly. If things escalate, we'll need credible scientists to speak the truth. A wave of fear and awe rolled through me. And if we're dealing with an alien intelligence that's already integrated into Earth's ecosystem, what do we do? Arthur's eyes glinted in the dim light. Try to understand it before it decides our fate. Parting ways. He left us by the observatory doors, tablet in our hands. We watched him stride to a dark SUV and drive off, leaving us with a trove of hidden knowledge. Marcus let out a long breath. Emily, this is either the biggest hoax in history or it changes everything. I clutched the tablet. We have to verify these documents. If they're real... He didn't finish the thought. Neither did I. We just stood there, staring at the lights of Los Angeles, while the stars above remained invisible under the glow of urban sprawl. I felt as if the city, and perhaps all of humanity, was asleep, blissfully unaware of a cosmic secret slithering just beneath the surface of our world. Chapter 9. Revelations. Verifying the tablet. The next week was a blur. We meticulously examined the digital documents from Arthur's tablet, cross-referencing them with public archives, checking declassified project files from the 20th century. Shockingly, the references to hidden tide were real. We found faint traces in old government budget documents and cryptic mentions in academic papers that never saw widespread publication. The puzzle pieces fit. One scanned memorandum detailed an experiment, injecting genetically labeled markers into a captured giant octopus, only to find them replicated in a manner inconsistent with normal cephalopod biology. Another file referenced corvid species exhibiting unusual group intelligence. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes one evening. This can't all be fabricated. The detail is too extensive, the references too obscure. I tapped my pen on the desk. So, it's real. The question is, what do we do with it? In the background, the cosmic signals remained silent for now, but the wave of animal oddities continued. More crows gathering en masse, more octopus sightings along coastlines. The scientific community mostly blamed climate factors or viral outbreaks. We knew better. Approaching Yolanda, we decided we couldn't keep this from Yolanda. She had always been my mentor, and if we were going to make sense of this, we needed her guidance. We called her into Marcus's office, locking the door. Carefully, we explained what we'd learned, showing her the documents. She listened with an unreadable expression. When we finished, she sat in silence for a full minute. Finally, she said quietly, "I've always believed we might be alone in the universe, but this suggests otherwise." Marcus interjected, "We might still be alone out there. The intelligence in question may have arrived on Earth eons ago, or it could be from some other origin we don't understand. The point is, it's here." Yolanda nodded, picking up a printed summary. Genetically engineered infiltration. Why would an alien intelligence seed these creatures with advanced neural architectures? Maybe they're terraforming Earth biologically, I offered, or gathering data about our civilization without revealing themselves. She paused. How dangerous is this? We don't know, I said honestly. We have no indication of aggression other than the fact it's hidden. But we also don't know the endgame. A shiver coursed through me. I recalled the final lines from the folder. They are already here. This is only the beginning. Twisting the Fermi Paradox. That night, I stayed late at my desk, scanning the city lights through my window. I realized with a jolt how our perspective on the Fermi Paradox might be naive. We expect aliens to come from the sky in shiny spacecraft or to broadcast loud signals across the cosmos. But maybe intelligence found a more subtle route, embedding itself within the local flora and fauna. Could that be the ultimate reason we haven't detected aliens among the stars? Because advanced life might prefer inconspicuous infiltration rather than overt contact. Could the great filter simply be the realization that the best way to persist in the universe is through stealth? I felt an unsettling mixture of awe and dread. If this intelligence had indeed chosen crows and octopuses as vessels, species that, ironically, we already admire for their smarts, how long before it expanded or revealed its intentions? Unlikely allies. Driven by the need for more information, Marcus and I decided to reach out to Dr. Okada in Oregon again. We proposed a collaboration to study the neural activity of stranded octopuses. She agreed, intrigued by our sudden interest. Yolanda tapped her administrative connections to secure a small grant to fund the research. It was all hush-hush. We didn't mention aliens, of course. We phrased it as investigating unusual patterns in cephalopod cognition linked to environmental triggers. Meanwhile, I initiated contact with an ornithologist at Cornell to gather data on the crow gatherings, again framed as environmental or climate-related research. Pieces were falling into place, but we still lacked a unifying theory of why. Why seed Earth's animals for intelligence? Why keep it hidden for so long? And who was orchestrating the signals that awakened them? Shadows in the lab. 2 nights before we were scheduled to leave for Oregon, something strange happened at the Caltech facility. Someone broke into our lab. The door was forced open and desk drawers were rummaged through, but nothing of obvious value was taken. No equipment or laptops. However, the locked drawer where I kept Arthur's folder was jimmied open and the folder was gone. Marcus stared at the mess in shock. They targeted that specifically. I trembled with anger and fear. Yes, they wanted those documents. Yolanda arrived, her face pale. Should we call campus security or the police? I nodded, still shaken. Of course, but I doubt they'll find anything. Whoever did this was careful. Campus security confirmed the camera feed for that corridor had been wiped. This was no random burglary. That night, as I tried to sleep, I wondered who else knew about the infiltration. Were there factions fighting over this knowledge? Or were we caught in a web of agencies with conflicting agendas? All I knew was that the stakes were higher than I'd ever imagined. Chapter 10. Threshold. Journey to the Northwest. Marcus and I flew to Portland the following week, renting a car for the drive out to the small coastal research station where Dr. Okada worked. The scenery along the way was breathtaking. Lush forests, rolling hills, glimpses of the Pacific Ocean. Our conversation was hushed. We no longer trusted that prying ears weren't listening, but we kept returning to the same question. What do we do if we discover conclusive proof that an alien intelligence is animating these creatures? Marcus stared at the road. If it's benevolent, maybe nothing. If it's malicious... I finished for him, a bitter edge in my voice. We'll be the only ones who know for sure. We arrived at the research station, a cluster of low buildings perched near a rocky coastline. The air smelled of salt and seaweed. Dr. Okada greeted us warmly, her hair tied back, wearing waders and a windbreaker, examining the specimens. She led us to a large saltwater tank housing several rescued octopuses. We placed them here temporarily while we run tests. I peered into the water. A large octopus, its skin shifting colors in a gentle swirl, regarded me with a strangely intense stare. My heartbeat fluttered. We're still analyzing the neural readings, Dr. Okada said, but preliminary results are, well, odd. She guided us to a small lab area with screens and medical equipment. Pointing to a monitor, she displayed a complex pattern of electrical signals. These spikes here, they coincide with certain external stimuli, like changes in barometric pressure, but they're also happening at random intervals that we can't explain. Marcus leaned closer. Could they be responding to something we're not measuring, like electromagnetic signals? Dr. Okada shrugged. We considered that, so we placed shielding around the tank. The spikes still occur. I recalled Arthur's words. The signals might be local, bouncing around. If these creatures were connected to some internal network or receiving signals at frequencies we hadn't considered, we might not detect them easily. I asked, have you tried scanning for radio emissions from the octopuses themselves? She gave me a puzzled look. Radio emissions from the octopuses. Marcus and I exchanged a glance. It sounded ridiculous, but we pressed on. Yes, even very low power or non-standard frequencies. Dr. Okada frowned. No, we haven't. We don't typically check for that. But we can rig something up. The day passed in a whirlwind. We assisted Dr. Okada's team in adjusting their sensor equipment. By evening, we had a rudimentary setup to scan for a wide range of frequencies within the tank. Nightfall in the lab. At around 11 p.m., we detected faint signals, barely above the noise floor, yet distinctly modulated. They seemed to come in brief bursts, each lasting a fraction of a second. Marcus's eyes were glued to the monitor. That's not random, he muttered. Dr. Okada looked shocked. Are you telling me these octopuses are emitting radio signals? I felt a shiver. It might not be them specifically. It could be an interaction with some unknown environmental factor, but it's coincident with the neural spikes. An uneasy silence fell. We repeated the tests, verifying the equipment, switching the tank, scanning each octopus individually. The results were consistent, faint, elusive transmissions. I remembered the hidden tide documents describing biological radio wave anomalies. My mind raced. This is it. Proof that something is embedded within these creatures. The trigger. Suddenly, one of the octopuses near the edge of the tank latched onto the glass with a force that rattled the enclosure. Its skin pulsed with color, red, then white, then swirling patterns of black. "Is that normal?" Marcus asked, alarmed. Dr. Okada shook her head, stepping back. "Number, this is unusual." We watched, transfixed, as it stretched an arm out of the water, tentatively exploring the air. The lab's overhead lights flickered. I felt a growing panic. The atmosphere seemed charged, as if an unseen presence crackled in the air. The octopus locked eyes with me, its pupil contracting in a way that felt uncannily sentient. Marcus gasped, pointing to the frequency readout. "The signals, they're spiking." Before any of us could react further, the lights went out completely. A fuse blow or a power surge, I wasn't sure. We stood in darkness, the only illumination coming from the glow of emergency lights near the exit. In that half-light, I heard water sloshing and Dr. Okada's startled cry, "The octopus is getting out!" Scrambling to grab flashlights, we found the octopus on the lab floor, glistening and shimmering. It moved with eerie determination, heading straight for the door. "Catch it!" Dr. Okada yelled, flipping on a flashlight. Marcus, braver than I felt, darted forward with a large net. The octopus, as if sensing him, shifted direction and slid around a table with uncanny speed. In that moment, I swore I heard a faint clicking or chirping noise, like a scrambled signal passing through the air. My scalp prickled. Finally, two lab assistants managed to corner the octopus, carefully scooping it back into a bin of salt water. It thrashed momentarily, then went still, its skin flickering once more. When the power came back on minutes later, we exchanged stunned looks. Something far beyond normal animal behavior was happening. Conclusion of the visit. After the chaos, we sat in the break room, sipping stale coffee. Dr. Okada's hands were shaking. "I've studied octopuses for 15 years. It's like it knew exactly how to move to escape." Marcus glanced at me. "What next?" I exhaled. "We collect more data, document everything, and try to figure out what's controlling them, or if they're controlling themselves." Dr. Okada looked at us with wide eyes. "Are you implying something is using these octopuses as a proxy? This is insane." I didn't know what to say. If it was insane, it was also real. Outside, waves crashed against the rocky shore, and a cold wind howled. The flickering lab lights and the shimmering creature in the tank seemed to signal a threshold, a point of no return. As we parted ways for the night, my heart pounded with anticipation and dread. Something had awakened in these animals. We had the data, and now there was no going back to a simpler worldview. Part 2. Chapter 11. Shadows of Cognition. After that harrowing night at the research station, Marcus and I booked a longer stay in Oregon to gather extensive data. We found ourselves grappling with a sobering reality. If these octopuses were indeed hosts to an alien intelligence, then every passing day brought new questions. How widespread was it? What was the ultimate aim? Late-night debrief. We sat in the dimly lit staff lounge around 2 a.m., a laptop open to a live feed of the tank. The escaped octopus had been returned, and Dr. Okada's team was now meticulously monitoring its every move. Marcus rubbed his eyes. "Look at this clip." He played a short video recorded post-incident. The octopus hovered near the tank's surface, one arm gently tapping the glass in a rhythmic pattern. "It's almost like it's signaling." I leaned closer, heart pounding at the possibility. If it's truly alien, maybe it's trying to communicate. Dr. Okada hovered by us, arms folded. She looked exhausted, but intrigued. I can't believe I'm even entertaining this idea. But yes, it does appear to be a pattern. We played the clip on a loop, analyzing the intervals of the octopus's movements. It seemed too regular to be random, yet it wasn't Morse code or any standard pattern we recognized. It's modulated, Marcus noted. The intervals between taps aren't uniform, but there's repetition if you look at a higher dimension, like a fractal pattern. You're losing me, Dr. Okada said with a weary smile. I tried to simplify. It's like a coded sequence of taps, but not in a linear fashion. It might be more akin to how we see repeating structures in fractals, self-similar at different scales. She nodded slowly. So, you think it's some sort of advanced communication attempt? Marcus hesitated. Possibly, but we need more data. A glimpse of hidden intelligence. Over the next few days, we recorded hours of footage. The octopus repeated the tapping pattern sporadically. We also noticed times when multiple octopuses in the tank synchronized their color changes, forming what looked like dynamic camouflage. But we suspected it served a deeper purpose: collective signaling. I replayed some of the hidden tide documents in my mind. They hinted that these creatures had been genetically altered long ago. If that was true, then maybe this communication module was part of their makeup, latent until triggered. One afternoon, I stepped outside to clear my head. The ocean stretched before me, steel grey under a cloudy sky. Seagulls cried overhead, and the wind carried the tang of brine. I felt a profound sense of dislocation, as if reality had shifted. We might not be the only intelligence on this planet. It wasn't an invasion in the traditional sense, no UFOs or laser beams. Instead, it was the quiet infiltration of a species that shared our planet. I tried to wrap my mind around the magnitude of it. An unsettling encounter. That night, around midnight, I couldn't sleep. I left my motel room and decided to walk the deserted beach. The moon was nearly full, lighting up the waves in silver arcs. As I strolled along the shore, I spotted a dark shape bobbing in the shallows. My heart fluttered. Was it another beached octopus? I moved closer, flashlight in hand. Indeed, a large octopus lay partially submerged, tentacles splayed out across wet sand. It wasn't thrashing. Instead, it seemed calm. I knelt down, waves lapping at my boots. Carefully, I placed the flashlight on the sand and reached out. The octopus looked at me with that uncanny gaze. One tentacle unfurled and wrapped gently around my forearm. A jolt of visceral fear and wonder raced through me. It was as though it was testing me, feeling my presence. For a moment, time stood still. I didn't sense hostility, more like curiosity. Then the octopus slid free and eased itself back into the shallows, disappearing beneath a cresting wave. I sat there, my arm still tingling from the contact. When I finally returned to the research station, I felt oddly vulnerable. There was an awareness in that creature's touch, a sense that it was seeing me, not just physically, but in a deeper way. Marcus's revelation. I recounted the incident to Marcus the next morning. He let out a low whistle. That's surreal. Maybe you had a close encounter of the cephalopod kind. We tried to keep the mood light, but the undercurrent of seriousness was undeniable. He flipped open his laptop. While you were out, I found something intriguing in the fractal analysis of the tapping sequence. It corresponds in part to certain prime number groups. My ears perked up. Prime numbers? The universal language of mathematics. Yeah, Marcus said, turning the laptop so I could see. These are the intervals. If we assign a short tap a 1 and a long tap a 0, it yields a partial prime sequence. Not perfectly, but it's suggestive. My heart hammered. For decades, scientists speculated that an alien civilization might use prime numbers to communicate, as they're fundamental in math. And now, here it was, maybe under our noses. Let's try to respond, I said, adrenaline surging. Marcus blinked. Respond? Why not? I smiled nervously. We can produce vibrations or light signals in the tank that mimic the prime number sequence. See if the octopuses react. Dr. Okada, upon hearing our plan, was both apprehensive and intrigued. We'll do it carefully. No harm to the animals. We set up a small waterproof device to emit gentle pulses of light in the water, encoding the first few primes. A leap into the unknown. Chapter 12. Bridging the Gap. The Experiment. After calibrating our makeshift communicator, we dimmed the lab lights and gathered around the tank. The device emitted short bursts of light, flash, pause, flash, pause, etc., to mimic prime numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Initially, the octopuses glided around without obvious reaction. Then, one of them, the same that had attempted escape, approached the device. Its skin shimmered in repeated pulses, each band of color shifting in a staccato pattern. Marcus's voice was hushed. Is it responding? We recorded everything. Over the next hour, the octopus flashed about 10 times, with intervals that, when mapped to binary, appeared to form partial prime sequences themselves. It was a kind of back and forth. Dr. Okada's face was pale with excitement. I've never seen anything like this. Even for an octopus, this is extraordinary. I stared at the mesmerizing display, trying to quell the racing thoughts in my mind. This was communication, of a form. If these animals harbored an alien intelligence, they were tentatively reaching out. A break in the pattern. Just as we began to see a consistent back and forth, the octopus suddenly stopped flashing and sank to the bottom of the tank. The other octopuses followed suit. A moment later, they all changed color simultaneously, adopting a uniform dark gray hue. What's happening? Dr. Okada whispered. We scanned the instruments. The faint radio emissions we'd detected earlier spiked, then ceased. Marcus tapped the screen in frustration. It's like they shut down. Why? We waited, hearts pounding, but the octopuses remained motionless. Revelations in the data. Over the following days, we analyzed the experiment's recordings. We found a partial sequence of communique that matched prime intervals up to 13. Then it abruptly terminated. It was as though something or someone intervened. I wondered, was there a higher-level intelligence controlling these creatures, deciding when and how they could communicate? Did we inadvertently trigger a shutdown response? Meanwhile, crows in the nearby region were also acting oddly. Large flocks gathered around fishing docks at dawn, cawing in dissonant choruses. Locals reported feeling uneasy, as though the birds were watching them. I felt a mounting sense of dread. The puzzle pieces suggested a single intelligence or network linking these two species. The cosmic signals had quieted, but maybe they had already served their purpose. Return to Caltech. Our time in Oregon ended. Marcus and I drove back to Portland under a grey sky, hearts weighted with unanswered questions. Dr. Okada promised to continue the research, keep us updated, and maintain confidentiality. When we landed in Los Angeles, we went straight to campus to debrief with Yolanda. She listened, eyes wide, as we described the octopus's potential conversation. She clasped her hands. So, we have partial evidence of advanced communication in an Earth species. If the media or general public knew about this... Marcus shook his head. We'd have mass hysteria, or, at minimum, frantic speculation, which might be worse. Yolanda exhaled. So, next steps? I met her gaze. We keep working quietly. We refine our analysis, try to replicate the experiment in a controlled setting. We also need to figure out what part the crows play. Yolanda nodded. Agreed. I'll help secure more funding for discrete research. But we must keep this under wraps until we're absolutely sure. Inside, I questioned if we'd ever be sure. This was territory beyond standard scientific paradigms. A warning from Graham. That night, I found a single email in my inbox from an unknown address. The subject line, urgent. The body was brief. Doctor, St. Clair, your progress is admirable, but be warned. There are others who fear this knowledge. They will try to discredit or silence you. Trust no one. A G. I read it twice, a chill creeping into my bones. Trust no one. But how could we proceed without trusting anyone? Marcus, Yolanda, Dr. Okada, they were all integral. Yet, someone had already stolen the folder from my lab. The phone lines could be tapped, emails intercepted. We were dealing with powerful forces, either governmental or otherwise, who wanted to manipulate this secret. I shut down my computer and gazed out the window at the campus lights. I felt a profound isolation, as if I was standing on the precipice of a world-altering discovery with no safety net. Chapter 13. Entangled Hypotheses. An unexpected visitor. 2 days later, while teaching an afternoon seminar, I received a note that someone from the Department of Defense was waiting to speak with me. My stomach flipped. I ended class early, hurrying to my office. A man in a crisp suit stood there, introducing himself as Colonel Elias Grant. He spoke in a calm, measured tone, presenting official credentials. "I'm aware of your work on the unusual signals and the recent phenomenon with marine life," he said once we were seated. I fought to keep my voice steady. "Yes, sir?" He smiled blandly. "We're keen to ensure the proper channels are followed. National security, you understand. Any potential alien presence or advanced technology demands a coordinated response." My mind raced. Was he part of the group trying to hide or control the information? I understand. But so far, we don't have definitive proof of an alien presence, as you put it. He leaned forward. "Let's not be coy, Dr. St. Clair. We've monitored your collaboration with Dr. Okada. We know about the attempts at communication." My heart pounded. "Are we in any trouble?" His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Not at all. The government appreciates your initiative. We simply ask you to share your data with us so we can handle the broader implications responsibly." I remembered Arthur's warning. Something felt off. "I'll have to confer with my colleagues." He stood up, handing me a card. "Of course. But time is of the essence. We look forward to your cooperation." I watched him go, tension knotting in my shoulders. This was bigger than I'd feared. The question, whose side were they on? Gathering allies. I relayed the encounter to Yolanda and Marcus. Yolanda looked grave. "If the Department of Defense is involved, we could be sidelined. The research might get classified." Marcus swallowed. "Which means the public never hears about it, and we might lose control over how the data is used." We debated whether to comply. On the one hand, if there was a real threat, the government might have resources to manage it. On the other hand, governments have a history of secrecy that could stifle scientific transparency and might lead to dangerous outcomes if they misinterpret or militarize the discovery. In the end, we decided to buy time. I sent Colonel Grant a polite email stating we were still analyzing the data and would be in touch. The emerging picture. As the weeks passed, crows and octopuses continued odd behaviors worldwide, though not always in dramatic fashion. We began to suspect that these events were part of a global phenomenon, an intelligence testing the limits of its newly awakened state. I compiled everything we had, the fractal tapping sequences, the radio emissions, the synchronized color displays, the flocking patterns. Laying it all out was overwhelming. Marcus studied a chart of crow migrations. "Look, these patterns deviate from normal routes, but they cluster around major coastal cities. Could they be monitoring human activity?" Yolanda tapped her chin. Octopuses also tend to be near coasts. Is there a strategic element here? My mind flickered with half-formed ideas. It might be, or maybe they just want to be near us, gathering data, observing. Crossroads. I sank into a desk chair in Yolanda's office, massaging my temples. We have so many questions. If there really is an alien intelligence here, why not contact us openly? Why operate through animals? Marcus offered a theory. Perhaps they can't survive in our atmosphere or gravitational field in their original form, or they see infiltration as safer, less likely to provoke panic or aggression. Yolanda nodded. Could it be that the signals we initially detected, what we thought were from Cygnus, were actually an attempt to misdirect us? Keep us looking out there instead of in our own oceans and skies? I recalled Enrico Fermi's original question. Where is everybody? The horrifying possibility was that everybody was already here, invisible and integrated, while we scoured the cosmos in vain. Chapter 14. Communication. Breakthrough. A return visit to Oregon. Driven by a burning need for answers, we returned to Dr. Okada's facility for a second round of experiments. This time, we brought more sophisticated equipment, signal analyzers, high-resolution underwater cameras, and a specialized device to produce patterned electromagnetic fields in the tank. We repeated the prime number approach, but now we varied the sequences, sometimes reversing or skipping primes. The objective was to see if the octopuses could correct our mistakes. On the third day, we got our wish. One octopus not only responded, but it sent back a corrected version of our sequence. We had a mismatch at prime number 19, and the octopus's color pulses appeared to insert the missing value. Dr. Okada gasped audibly when we deciphered it. This is beyond any known animal intelligence. Marcus practically leapt out of his seat. It corrected us. That implies an understanding of mathematics, at least on par with a human's. My head spun. This was no longer speculation. We were conversing, albeit in a rudimentary code, with something that understood prime numbers and recognized errors. The net tightens. But even as we celebrated this breakthrough, the pressure mounted. Strange men in suits showed up at the research station, asking questions, flashing government IDs. Dr. Okada reported seeing suspicious cars parked near her home. We realized our time was running short. If the government shut us down, we might never learn the full truth. Dark clouds. Late one evening, the station's power cut out again. We scrambled for emergency lights. When it came back, we discovered someone had tampered with the main server containing our data logs. Many files were corrupted or missing. Marcus clenched his fists in anger. They're trying to bury the evidence. Fortunately, we had backups off-site, but the message was clear. Powerful forces wanted to stop us. A swirl of fear and indignation roiled within me. This is too important. We can't just give up. The strange collective. Despite the sabotage, we continued daily sessions with the octopuses. Sometimes they responded with near-human logic, correcting or extending sequences. Other times, they acted as normal octopuses might, ignoring us entirely. One afternoon, we set up a real-time feed with an ornithology lab on the East Coast that was running parallel experiments with captive crows. The crows had been presented with puzzle boxes containing prime-numbered sequences of compartments. The lab reported the crows opened them in sequential order, far exceeding typical avian problem-solving. It was as if the two species, crows and octopuses, were developing advanced cognitive tasks simultaneously, each receiving some sort of external guidance. I felt a surreal amazement. We are witnessing intelligence that transcends species boundaries. Chapter 15. Higher stakes. A message emerges. 3 days into our extended stay, something extraordinary happened. In a session with the prime flashes, the lead octopus formed color patterns we had never seen before, almost kaleidoscopic. We captured it on video and spent hours decoding. To our shock, it spelled out an approximate representation of the Fibonacci sequence, not just primes. This was higher-order math. Marcus slumped against a console. We're basically looking at a mind that's possibly smarter than we are, at least in raw pattern recognition. Dr. Okada whispered, "This is a new chapter in science." But that euphoria quickly gave way to a realization. If these creatures are this advanced, what do they ultimately want from us? Colonel Grant's ultimatum. The next morning, Colonel Grant arrived unannounced at the facility. He had a detachment of military personnel with him, their stern faces scanning the lab. Dr. Okada protested, but he showed official documents authorizing him to coordinate and secure research pertinent to extraterrestrial or otherwise anomalous intelligence. Grant turned to me, voice low. "Doctor, St. Clair, I told you time was of the essence. This station is now under government oversight. Please hand over all relevant data." Marcus bristled. "On whose authority?" "Presidential directive," Grant replied tersely. "We can show you if you insist, but trust me, it's valid. For national security, we need to contain this situation." I weighed my options, fear thrumming in my veins. If we refused, we might be arrested, but if we complied, we'd lose control. I glanced at Dr. Okada, who looked devastated, and Marcus, whose eyes blazed with anger. We ended up surrendering minimal data, claiming the rest was lost in the recent sabotage. I felt a pang of guilt, but we had off-site backups. We couldn't just give it all up. Forced compliance. Grant and his team began setting up a perimeter around the tank area, restricting access. They posted armed guards. One soldier corralled the lead octopus into a smaller container, presumably for transfer to a secure facility. My stomach twisted as I watched them handle the creature. I could sense its agitation, the swirling flashes on its skin. It had tried to connect with us, and now it was being treated like contraband. That night, alone in my motel room, I wept with rage and frustration. The chance to communicate freely was slipping away. Humanity's first real contact with an alien intelligence, if that's truly what it was now shrouded in secrecy. Chapter 16. Desperate Measures. The Escape Plan. 2 days later, Colonel Grant was preparing to move the octopuses. Dr. Okada secretly confided in Marcus and me that she planned to hide one of the smaller specimens. It was ethically grey, but she believed that if the government took them all, the research would be weaponized or buried. "It's the only way," she said, voice trembling. "We can't let them stifle this discovery." Marcus and I agreed, though with heavy hearts. We discreetly set up a secondary tank in a locked storeroom. Dr. Okada smuggled the small octopus out, placing it there with minimal detection. We left a camera and signal emitter so we could continue a clandestine attempt at communication. Frantic research. For the next 48 hours, we worked in shifts, hoping the small octopus would replicate the color-coded math patterns. It seemed traumatized by the abrupt move, but eventually it began exploring the tank. When it finally produced a sequence of flashes, slower and more subdued than before, we pounced on the data, analyzing every pattern. We found partial references to prime numbers again, but this time one sequence repeated more often. We realized it matched the approximate distance between Earth and the Moon. "Why is it referencing the Earth-Moon distance?" Dr. Okada asked, baffled. Marcus scratched his head. "Could it be indicating a location, or demonstrating knowledge of Earth's parameters?" I thought of the earlier speculation about the signals and how the Moon's phases influence detection. Maybe the intelligence that controls them is located near the Moon, or uses it for reflection. Or it's simply showing us it understands Earth's celestial relationships. A window of opportunity. As we struggled to interpret the patterns, Colonel Grant intensified security. Rumors swirled that top-level officials were on their way. We feared the facility would be locked down completely. One evening, we overheard Colonel Grant on a phone call. "Yes, sir. We'll have them transferred to Site Omega by Friday at 0900 hours. Site Omega. That sounded like the end of the line for free research. We decided to make one last attempt at full contact with the hidden octopus. If it truly held advanced intelligence, we needed direct answers. Who or what was behind this infiltration, and what was their goal? The final night. On our last evening, we snuck into the storeroom. The small octopus was awake, drifting gently near the surface of the tank. We used a refined code combining light pulses and gentle vibrations in the water. We asked, in the simplest way we could, "Who are you?" We encoded letters as prime intervals, bridging mathematics and language. The risk of error was huge, but it was all we had. For a long time, the octopus didn't respond. Then it began a slow, deliberate series of color flashes. We recorded them frantically, translating as best we could. The message we extracted wasn't perfectly clear, but we got fragments. We are here. Long cycle. Observe. Evolution. That last word sent a jolt through me. Evolution. Did that mean they were shaping evolution? Observing it? Participating in it? Then came one final fragment. Soon. Unity. We stared at each other in awe and terror. Unity. Unity of what? Humans and them? Or the integrated intelligence of all crows and octopuses? Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. We quickly shut down our devices, covering them with a cloth. The storeroom door creaked open, a guard peering in. We pretended to be conducting routine checks. He eyed us suspiciously but left. Our hearts pounded. This was it. We were out of time. Chapter 17. The Unveiling. Seized. The next morning, armed personnel swept the facility. Colonel Grant ordered everyone out except for essential staff, and we were told our services were no longer required. Dr. Okada was forcibly removed, nearly in tears. They confiscated all equipment, data drives, and physical samples. We had some digital backups hidden away, but the government clampdown was thorough. We returned to Caltech, feeling defeated and hollow. Communication had been possible, but the window slammed shut. I worried about the octopuses under military custody. Would they be tested, dissected, or destroyed? Silence falls. Back at campus, our watchers reappeared, unknown men lurking in corridors. Funding for our research was abruptly cut. Yolanda was pressured by the administration to drop all related projects. Our attempts to speak publicly were met with official denials. I recalled Arthur Graham's cryptic warnings. He hadn't contacted us in weeks. Was he compromised, or had he vanished into the shadows of his organization? The signals from space, or wherever they originated, remained silent. The crows' gatherings continued sporadically, but not with the same intensity. It felt like the phenomenon had gone underground, waiting. A world in the dark. Days turned into weeks, and the news cycle moved on to other stories. Public attention on strange animal behavior dwindled. Without fresh sensational material, people forgot. But we remembered. We carried the weight of that knowledge. An alien intelligence was alive on Earth, hidden within creatures we barely understood, possibly guiding or shaping events from behind the scenes. And now it was under the watchful eye of a government that might use it for unknown ends. Moments of resignation. One evening, Marcus and I sat in my cramped office, the faint hum of campus traffic drifting through the window. We sipped cold coffee, lost in thought. He finally broke the silence. "I can't believe how quickly everything was shut down. We were so close." My throat tightened. "Yeah, part of me wonders if we'll ever know the full truth." Marcus fiddled with a pen. You used to say you believed in the rare Earth hypothesis, that we might be alone. Funny how everything changed. I forced a sad smile. It's ironic. We spent so long looking out there, but the answer was here all along, and now we can't even study it. He sighed. What do we do now? I stared at the dusty posters on my wall, star charts, images of galaxies. We keep going. Write about it in code, maybe, or wait for the next sign. But we can't just let it go. Chapter 18. The unexpected twist, a final revelation. Strange summons. Months passed with no significant breakthroughs. The Department of Defense offered no updates. Life at Caltech returned to a semblance of normalcy, though a weight pressed on my spirit. Then, late one night, I received a frantic call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was whispered, panicked. Arthur Graham. He said just one sentence before the line went dead. They were wrong about the octopuses. It's the crows. My pulse skyrocketed. The crows? Within an hour, Marcus showed up at my door, breathless, waving his phone. I just got the same call from Graham. Racing for answers. In a daze, we rushed to Yolanda's home, waking her with urgent knocks. She let us in, her hair disheveled, eyes squinting in confusion. We explained the calls from Graham. She frowned. The government seized the octopuses. Did they miss something about the crows? Marcus paced in her living room. If the real infiltration was in crows all along, maybe the octopuses were a decoy, or just one piece of the puzzle. I thought about the mass crow gatherings, the rumored advanced puzzle solving. Maybe the crows are the true hosts of this intelligence with a more advanced social network. Yolanda made a pot of coffee. So, what do we do? Find the largest crow congregation, I said, adrenaline surging. Observe them. Dawn at the park. We knew from local reports that thousands of crows roosted in a park near the outskirts of Los Angeles. At daybreak, Marcus, Yolanda, and I drove there, hearts hammering. As the first light touched the sky, we saw them, a black cloud swirling over the treetops, thousands of crows cawing in eerie unison. We parked, stepping out onto the dew-soaked grass. The spectacle was both awe-inspiring and chilling. The crows circled overhead, forming intricate patterns. Yolanda gasped, pointing. Look at that formation. They weren't just swirling randomly. The flock was assembling into shapes, circles, lines, geometric patterns reminiscent of symbols. Marcus managed to snap photos. My mind raced. Are they spelling something out? Then, without warning, a massive portion of the flock dove downward, landing on the grass in front of us. The crows stared, eyes glinting in the early sun. I swallowed, stepping forward slowly. One crow, larger than the rest, waddled closer. It cocked its head. A sense of déjà vu washed over me, reminiscent of the octopus's curious stare. Is this the intelligence, directly engaging us? Suddenly, the crows parted, forming a corridor. The largest crow hopped a few paces, then turned back as if beckoning us to follow. Yolanda's voice trembled. Are we actually going to follow a crow? Marcus nodded. We've come this far. The unexpected encounter. We walked deeper into the park, the murder of crows flanking us on either side, forming a living tunnel. Their cawing had subsided to a low murmur. My heart pounded. Eventually, we reached a secluded clearing. A single dead tree stood in the center, branches gnarled against the sky. Hundreds of crows perched on it, silent. The large crow hopped onto a low branch, and then it spoke. Not in a normal crow caw, but in a distorted, raspy approximation of human speech. You, see, us. We froze. My ears rang. The crow's voice was broken, as though forcibly shaped. Marcus stammered, "Huh, how?" The crow's head twitched, black feathers ruffling. Long, watch, hidden, all. Yolanda clasped my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. This was more than mimicry. There was an attempt at real communication. I swallowed, forcing my voice steady. "Are you an alien intelligence?" The crow seemed to consider, then croaked, "Older than star watchers." My knees went weak. Older than star watchers. Could it mean older than our civilization, or older than we can fathom? Marcus managed to speak. "Why reveal yourselves now?" A cacophony of caws rose, then subsided. The crow twisted its head almost upside down, as if scanning us. "Humans, threatened, unity, must merge, or end." A wave of nausea hit me. Merge or end. This was either a dire warning or an ultimatum. Yolanda said softly, "Are you saying you want to merge with humanity?" The crow's eyes gleamed. Evolution. Inevitable. Together. Fear hammered in my chest. Was this infiltration a prelude to merging species? Then the crow fluttered down, landing mere inches from my feet. It stared up, unblinking. A flicker of something, like light, passed behind its eyes. In that moment, I sensed a presence, vast and ancient, brushing against my consciousness. It wasn't telepathy, exactly, but a profound sense of other. My vision blurred, a surge of images flashing, giant cephalopods drifting in primordial seas, crows perched on ancient ruins, the slow crawl of civilizations rising and falling. I gasped, stumbling backward. The connection broke. The crow cawed loudly, then took flight, the entire flock erupting into the sky. We shielded our faces from the gust of wind and beating wings. When the air cleared, the crows were gone, leaving only swirling leaves in the pale morning light. Epilogue and the final twist. We stood there, shaken to our core. The meaning of the crow's words echoed in my mind. Must merge or end. Could it be that the alien intelligence saw itself as humanity's guide or savior, or perhaps a catalyst for the next stage of evolution? Had we misunderstood the entire Fermi Paradox? Perhaps advanced life doesn't always arrive in spaceships. It finds subtle pathways, weaving itself into ecosystems, waiting until the time is right to reveal its agenda. Marcus, Yolanda, and I walked back to the car in stunned silence. Over the next weeks, we tried to piece together the experience, the infiltration of cephalopods and corvids, the cosmic signals, the government's involvement, and Arthur Graham's cryptic warnings. But the twist none of us expected was that the crows held the key all along. The octopuses were only one facet, a brilliant distraction. In truth, the crows, planetary watchers from an intelligence older and more patient than we could imagine, had been quietly observing humanity for centuries or millennia. Their final revelation, merge or end, haunted us. Was it a prophecy, a threat, or a promise of cooperation? And that's the ending that changed everything. We might still be alone in the conventional sense of searching the stars for neighbors. Yet we are not alone here on Earth. An otherworldly consciousness has seeded itself in the unlikeliest of species. The final unspoken question: will we resist or embrace that union? Even as I type these words, I wonder how soon the day will come when crows gather again, their black eyes reflecting our own image back at us, silently judging whether we are ready to take the next step or face oblivion. Author's concluding note. Thus ends the dramatized account surrounding the Fermi Paradox, with a scientific yet mysterious narrative culminating in an outcome few would anticipate. The realization that alien intelligence need not arrive from distant stars in spacecraft. It may flourish in the everyday creatures we overlook, guiding or observing humanity for purposes unknown.